Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. So glad you guys could join us once again. For those tuning in on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and on X, we're glad to have you all with us for the simulcast. We're about to connect with our friends over on Amazon Live so we can introduce you guys to today's guest. I think this is going to be one that you guys will really enjoy and also want to tell your friends about because it's a topic I think that all of us have either considered ourselves or been a part of conversations, that being around science and faith. So I think you guys are going to really enjoy this. And we're now live on the Amazon Live platform with Cyrus Webb Presents. If you guys are new to us on the Amazon side, I'm going to type you guys a welcome message over there. Make sure you guys do hit that follow button, either here in this corner or down below. You also will see the book by our next guest. We're excited to welcome author Brian Cranley to our broadcast today. Brian's the author of the book called The Call of Wonder. I'm going to highlight it for you guys. You'll notice the Kindle edition's on sale right now for only 99 cents, or you can be able to get the print edition as well. I want to talk to Brian not only about the writing of the book, but also the conversation about science, religion, and faith, and what it's been like for him to share that now with readers. If you guys have not gotten your copy of the book or staying connected with Brian, we'll let you guys know how to find him. But Brian, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Cyrus, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited.
Well, look, I'm excited to have you on. I was saying to you before we went live here, I had a chance to read the book thanks to our mutual friends at PR Buy the Book. Really enjoyed it. And I think it's an important conversation for the times that we're in right now. Brian, what has it been like for you to see the way that people are responding to the book since its release?
That's a great question because the book does cover a lot of topics. You know, we go through philosophy, we go through theology, and then we go through science and how faith and science can kind of work together. So it covers a lot of topics, and it's been fascinating to talk to people kind of on all spectrums of belief. I've talked to, Christians, Muslims, atheists, agnostics, and it leads to some really in-depth topics that, like you said, we all think about, and this is something I thought about most of my life. I just didn't realize that I was, putting these things together slowly, but I think everybody thinks about it. So it's exciting to have a book that can kind of open those conversations up and, lead to that type of discussion.
I love the way you said to open it up, Brian, because I think it also gives people permission. I think one of the saddest things that's happened today is that, unfortunately, people feel like they can't talk about these things without being judged. I was saying to you before we went live that I love the fact that the book is very conversational. Also, in doing this show for quite some time, I've heard authors talk about, the comfort level of writing what you know. What was it like for you to be able to think about your own relationship with science and religion and how it kind of played in the writing this book?
Yeah. So my background, I'll just give a quick background because it applies there. I have a background in biomedical engineering on the science side, and then I felt a calling to ministry. So I went to seminary and studied 5 years of philosophy, theology. And then I decided not to go into ministry, but I had that education. And so I thought the two would never go together, and so I spent the next 15 years thinking about science on one side and faith on the other. And so in my own life, it's been tough to put them together. And I just kind of sat with these questions for a long time. And then one day I saw a YouTube video by Fermilab out of Chicago. And that was kind of an aha moment where they came together in a brand new way. And that's kind of what led to writing the book, but also the integration of the two sides in my own life.
Brian, I love the fact, especially in the first part of the book, there's a lot of historical references, things that people I think will be interested in and also be relatable to them. Two individuals I was mentioning to you that you write about in the book that definitely play an important part on how people look at their own beliefs and philosophies, or Aristotle and also Plato. What was it like for you to think about the role that they played, not only as intellectuals, but also as a way that people look at religion and the idea of religion?
Yeah. So they have a huge influence on religion. And I guess a lot of people don't realize that. I didn't realize it until I had that education. But, Plato kind of began the conversation of Western philosophy. And some people think he was kind of the father of the discussions that followed for the next 2,000 years. And then when Aristotle sort of took Plato's ideas and made them his own, and he created the argument of the unmoved mover, which is, a classic philosophical argument for the existence of God. Well, then later on, philosophers from Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, which I cover in chapter 4, they all took those ideas and that discussion, and they used them as a sort of rational basis to describe their theologies. And so it's one thing that all monotheism has in common, which I find fascinating, is this underlying discussion of, I guess, rational descriptions of God. And that's what I tried to outline in the first half of the book. So people that might not have had that education can get a quick summary of it in 4 chapters.
Yeah, and kudos to you in doing that, because I, as someone who loves history, though,
Yeah.
I appreciated that, but I also love the fact, again, that it was, I think, an important to the conversation, as you were alluding to, but also written in a way that is inviting for the reader, so that it is interesting and they kind of see the connection and tie in. Was it difficult for you to write something so personal, Brian? Because I think for a lot of people, it's not always easy to be able to express themselves and to even mention that they may have had questions for themselves when it comes to God and faith. Was it an easy thing for you to decide to write this and then to be able to publish it?
No, it's very difficult. You feel very vulnerable.
Yeah.
There's a lot of imposter syndrome. I'm not a writer. I never thought of myself as a writer. So to even write a book was a challenge. I had to go back and research things that I had studied 15 years ago. But yeah, putting yourself out there in a book with something as personal as your beliefs and your faith and open it to criticism, not easy, but I can say after doing it, I'm very thankful, grateful that I did, because like we talked about, it leads to these new conversations with people. Maybe they didn't know that side of you before.
Right.
But also after writing the book, in my own life, my own mind, I just keep thinking about these things. It leads to more thought. When you have this you have the background of the discussion that's been happening for 2,000 years worldwide, then it leads to your own thoughts on the matter. What do I believe? How does that work with my Christianity or my faith beliefs? So it's been an awesome experience.
I want to read something from the book that I thought was really interesting, Brian, and I think it ties into, for a lot of people, conversations and thought for themselves. It's in chapter 7 of the book, Life, and you write this: the sheer amount of life we see around us often leads me to ponder, how did this all begin? The answer to that question from within the scientific community is that natural processes of chemical evolution allowed non-living matter to become a living thing. From the world of faith and theology, however, the answer is God. God created life on earth as described in the accounts of Scripture. Here lies the greatest of difficulties to overcome in the discussion between faith and science. It has also been the most difficult question in my own mind, as I have slowly come to the realization we don't yet have all the pieces of the puzzle with which to form a satisfactory answer. Life remains a mystery to be discovered. And I think that is the part that I think is so fascinating. I want to talk about that, because one thing I love about this book, Brian, and I think about in my own conversations with friends, when it comes to the idea of God and science and making that connection, is that they don't have to be opposites of one another, right? They can complement each other. What was that like for you to be able to think about for yourself? To make that reconciliation, but also in having conversations like this in the book.
Yeah. So that sentence, I'll just go through my history of thought and how my own thought developed. So most of us, if you're raised in faith, my background is a devout Christian family, and most of us read Genesis and we're taught the Bible stories. And I think you automatically assume the earth was created in 6 literal days, all of life. Then as you get older, and then that's still a belief that's called young earth creationism. So some people obviously still believe that. As you get older, you study science, you realize, the age of the earth through geology, or the age of the universe through distant starlight. You come to maybe accept that a day doesn't mean 24-hour period, and maybe it can mean eons or eras, and it's more of a literary tool. But then, lately, as I've just personally enjoyed studying paleontology, I read 2 great books by Steve Brusette on the rise and fall of the dinosaurs and the rise and reign of the mammals. And it goes through all of our modern understanding of paleontology and the stages which life developed, making a case for evolution. So then you have to figure out, well, how does evolution fit with the stories of Genesis? And is evolution true? Is it partly true? So I kind of explore all those options in the book and leave it open to the reader. I'm leaning towards evolution is how God created, and that's a belief system known as theistic evolution or evolutionary creationism. I find it fascinating where the 2 worlds go together. I've also in writing the book, looked deeper into the Hebrew words in the book of Genesis. And, I go through that in chapter 9, where I talk about, they use different words. The beginning, Genesis 1:1, they use the word, God created the heavens and the earth. They use the word bara, which means our notion of creation from nothing, the divine creation from nothing. But then the verb switches to badal and asa, which is more like to fashion from matter already present, or to divide out from matter already present. And so if you look at it in those terms, it's more like what happened in science. Like, there's a big bang, there's a moment of creation where matter and energy kind of appear. And then from that, it divides out into planets, galaxies, stars, and eventually Earth and life. So that kind of mixing the two is where I just find it fascinating.
What I thought about when reading The Call of Wonder, Brian, for myself, is that you have individuals, because again, I interview a variety of individuals on either this show or the radio show, both people in the scientific community as well as those, who are people of faith or Bible scholars. And they both have moments that they have uncertainty about how things happen, both in science, as well as it comes in faith as well. And I think that is one of the things that makes it universal, the idea that there are some things we just don't know. How have you been able to reconcile that for yourself, that there are some things that we probably will never know or fully understand?
Well, I make the case that is one of the divine attributes about the universe and about science, where God is imaging himself, because the theologians and philosophers talk about, we can know God, we can know about him, obviously through the Bible, the Quran, revelation sources, but you can know about him through natural reason as well. It's just limited. And so you can kind of get a little bit more figured out, but you can never reach the end. And to me, that's exactly what science feels like when we're studying the Big Bang and the first moment of creation through things like the Large Hadron Collider. When we find out just a little bit more, but we know that our known laws of physics break down at time equals zero. So we'll never be able to see past that point in a sense, but we can always find out a little bit more. And in that way, it images sort of the divine mystery. And that's one of the attributes I highlight in the book, which I think now that's where you want to hang out to really experience wonder, are those places where it's not, you can't solve it, but it's also worth kind of discovering more, like those great mysteries. So that's kind of where the word wonder came from in the title, is trying to hang out in those difficult areas.
Yeah. And it gives, again, people a place where they can go and feel comfortable. I want to say, for those who are just tuning in, welcome. You're watching Cyrus Webb Presents on Amazon Live, but we are simulcasting on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and on X. We're speaking today with Brian Cranley. He's the author of this book, The Call of Wonder. Again, it's available in print here on Amazon, or you guys can get the Kindle edition for only 99 cents right now, which is a great deal. You can click on it, go ahead and start reading it today. And definitely it's one of those books I think that will draw you in. Brian, I want to disagree with you on one thing that you said, because you said that you don't consider yourself a writer. I think at this point, people would probably disagree with with that, having written such a thoughtful book. But I do want to ask you, talk about wonder. I think this is a perfect representation in many ways of what we're talking about. For you to have had these thoughts, for you to be on this journey, and now you have this physical representation of that. Talk to us about that. Has that kind of sunk in for you, that what began as something very personal is now out here for the world to be able to explore as well?
Yeah. So I'm a big experience guy. And I the one thing I knew I wanted in the book was the word wonder in the title.
Yeah.
And in chapter 1, I talk about the different types of wonder. Our world is bombarded by CGI movies and sensationalist social media clips. So that's one type of wonder. Another type I talk about is the imagination, using, kids use their imagination to dream up playland. People use it to imagine a future, and that's a different type of wonder. But what I'm trying to hone in on is, I call it authentic wonder, which is the experience of encountering these great mysteries of the universe, space, the natural world, life, and the human mind, kind of as distinct from the other animals. And that wonder, I feel like, is, man, it's sort of like a healing type of experience, where it kind of gives you perspective of your place in the universe. It humbles you, and it's refreshing. And so it's also the experience that is shared by philosophers, theologians, and scientists alike. And so I thought everyone experiences wonder. It's part of the human experience. And so an atheist, an agnostic, a believer, we can all agree on wonder, and kind of discovering that more is fascinating to me.
Yeah. You talk about too. I mentioned earlier about reconciling, and
Uh-huh.
as we kind of think of certain things that that science has shown us, but also thinking about for individuals like myself and you who believe the Bible, who also then are trying to reconcile the two things together. You give an example. I'm not going to share what the example is here, but people see it when they read the book. But you say this in talking about that. And I think this is what, again, makes this book so timely, Brian, because I think a lot of people have been ostracized for even questioning, for even saying, okay, well, how could this be if I read this in school that this, you wrote this, considering modern scientific findings, the question arises, can this story, and our audience will tell what that story is when they read the book, be true? This is what you then say, Brian. I believe the answer to that question is yes. The historical events might have played out differently than in the Genesis story, but the deeper meaning of the narrative remains the same. Personally, I've always wondered what the story would have looked like from a historical perspective. And I think that is what, again, this book does, is allows us to think about those two things, about what we think about when it comes to history, what we've learned in books, and also what we've heard, and then being able to think about it in our own belief. Is that one of the things you hope readers do, Brian, is to pick up the book, to hopefully approach it with an open mind, but even if they were to have their own preconceived ideas, to at least be able to be open to seeing what you have to say and thinking about it?
Yeah, I sure hope so. That's my hope. And what you're touching on right there is one of the more controversial parts of the book. But I
Mhm.
tried to phrase it with a preparatory, opening, saying this is going to get a little controversial, and you might
Yeah.
experience some cognitive dissonance. But one thing I'm proud about in this book is that I tried to go there to the places that are really difficult
Mhm.
to even bring your own mind to when you're bringing together faith and science. Sometimes it's really hard. Your mind just doesn't want to go to some of these places. And so I tried to do that and illustrate it for the reader so that they could then, just see where they stand and what they believe, and at least hear both sides of the story and maybe learn something new along the way.
Mhm. I noticed in some of the posts that your publisher has made, and even some of the stuff you've made, Brian, online, that you've had events at a bookstore. I saw you've been doing some TV as well. What has it been like for you to have people up close and personal with you now, to be able to discuss the book face to face?
I love it. These are things that I held in my own mind for 15, 20 years, and I didn't really talk about them that much with people. So even people that know me pretty well, when they read the book, they're like, "Oh, okay, I didn't know that part about Brian."
Hmm.
So to put it on paper is pretty cool because it's something you can hand out or sell to a lot of different people,
Yeah.
and then it opens a new dimension in your relationships. When people open up that part of themselves, like we said, most people think about this stuff. Probably almost everybody at some point thinks about it. To be able to have those deeper conversations, I think, has only made my relationships better. And
Mhm.
so I think it's a good thing.
How has writing this book changed you?
Man, that's a great question. Um, well, as my publisher will tell you, I kind of edited it for a year and a half. It's very hard to not keep adding and changing, and you're learning so much. And I still want to go back and change things,
Mhm.
but it's changed me in that these are the things that you can go back to think about for the rest of your life. It's
Yeah.
not something that, you're going to read this book and have it all figured out. It's just
Yeah.
more details of the conversation, and you can spend the rest of your life thinking about it, and it's, a fulfilling thing to do. So
Yeah.
I still think about it basically, and it's only gotten better.
I love that. And it's so funny you said it that way, Brian, and you and I had not discussed that. But I thought this is, I think, one of the things about we human beings, that we feel like we have to graduate from things, right? And if
Yeah.
we haven't reached the top of it, then we failed. I think a book like this shows that we're forever learning, we're forever
Yeah.
evolving, and we're forever being able to embrace, and that's what makes us, I think, grow as individuals.
Yeah.
And I think individuals who read the book with that in mind, that you're not, as you just mentioned, that you're not going to get a certificate when you finish reading this book,
I'll write you one if you want. Just
Yeah,
email me. I'll
there's not
write
gonna
you
be a
one.
pop quiz or anything. Yeah, but there is an opportunity there for you to really be able to not only to push yourself when it comes to your beliefs, but also to have conversations, to be okay with having those conversations with others and respecting those conversations. And I think that's what's so great about it. Again, everyone, Brian Cranley has been our guest. The Call of Wonder is the book, as I mentioned, here on Amazon. The book's available in print or the Kindle edition. Great conversation with you, Brian. I knew it was going to be. How can our viewers and listeners stay connected with you?
They can sign up on my website, briancranley.com, and you can read the first chapter for free. It'll go right to your email. I send out updates there. I'm on LinkedIn, is my most active social media right now, but I'm working on the other ones. So X, I'm also on X. You can check me out there, Brian Cranley. Both of them are Brian Cranley, my name.
Got it. And we have you tagged on both, so our audience can also be able to find him there too. Brian, congratulations to you again on the book. Looking forward to our next chat together.
Thank you, Cyrus.
More than welcome. And we thank you, our audience, for tuning in to another great segment of Cyrus Webb Presents. Until next time, you'll make it a great one. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.